I've never seen a diamond in the flesh. I cut my teeth on wedding rings.
Dude, that's pretty cool.
Man,
On this
that
sad
is a
clown.
sad clown.
Proud of my address.
Dude, that's pretty good.
This is The Gloom, bringing you weekly interviews with F3Omaha packs, exploring their F3 experiences and finding those sticky elements that create the glue in the gloom.
I'm trying to get him to do the intro here, but he won't do it. And Pony just got promoted. He's the head of production at Vandalay Industries, I think. Latex.
Awesome.
I don't think Vandalay would hire me if that was an option.
Sorry, we just watched that Seinfeld episode, so it's fresh in my mind. But all right, so this guy, I wish you could see him because he looks good as always. But today he's wearing a special Hawaiian shirt on a Friday. He's a great leader, has recently led at the Oracle, so really our kind of staple site here in F3 Omaha. But what I have enjoyed most, I think, just talking with this guy on runs or in the gloom is really just his passion for getting better. I noticed that he's working with his shield lock and working with other guys to just really like dive in. What do we need to be doing as men to really be male community leaders? And he pushes other guys to do that too. And so hey man, you do look good for sure, and it's just good to see you. And maybe where we start off is just who brought you out. What was that first workout like, and how did we land on the name Hei Hei? And maybe clarify for us, how do you spell that, and where does that name come from?
Yeah, I appreciate it, fellas. Appreciate the opportunity. I do listen to all these. I really enjoy it. I think it's awesome you guys do this, and so appreciate the invitation to come talk with y'all. But my first post was at 1776 in the middle of COVID. T-Swift Greenhouse and I came out together. T-Swift had seen it on Twitter from a former college friend. I have to imagine it was Sasquatch, so maybe you can give him the credit for EHing us. But there was no one who really invited us out. We just saw it. He Googled it, and I said, "Hey, that sounds awesome. It sounds like something I need in the middle of COVID." And so we showed up that Saturday at the Oracle. It was at Aldridge at the time, and knocked out the 1776. Got a lot of weird looks, and you're coming out for the first time today. It's a little bit of a different workout, and said, yeah, whatever. And so got through it. I think I'd probably had a few drinks the night before, and so I was feeling pretty good throughout the workout until we got to the bear crawl burpees, and that did me in. And so then by the end of the workout, I was ready to go. I was heading towards my car, and someone grabbed me and said, "No, you got to come over here and circle up." And I'm like, "No, I'm good. I'll be back. Don't worry." But I'm done for the day. And it was, "No, you got to come." And so I circled up with the group, and that first name around, I'm pretty sure I got a whole bunch of snot running down my nose. Looked great. Try my best not to throw up. But everyone was asking questions about me, and again, I'd had it for the day. I was done. I didn't want to give them much, and T Swift started sharing stuff for me. And so he mentioned I like Disney movies, which is true. And they asked what my favorite Disney movie was, and I don't know if it was recency bias. I think it stood the test of time, but Moana is one of my favorites. And then they said, "What's the dumb chicken from Moana's name?" And I kind of nodded and said, "Yep, it's Hei Hei." And so that's how it came to be, which was perfect because when I watched Moana with my kids, we used to argue about who's which character, and I always would say Jack's Hei Hei or Ryan's Hei Hei, and they'd always say, "No, Dad's Hei Hei." And I came home that day and said, all right, kids, Dad's Hei Hei. So
That's awesome, man. And I'm glad you actually shared the story before this interview. I actually had to do a quick Google search because I didn't know what that came from. So appreciate the backdrop there. To come into 1776, I mean, that's quite a beat down for your first one. Curious, where were you at on your physical fitness journey? Were you kind of slacking, or were you on top of your game and you just wanted another challenge?
no, I was on top of my game at the time. So I think the fall before COVID, I was finishing my basement, and I'd put my back out twice trying to hang the drywall myself. And so I had a few months off there where I gained a few pounds and kind of lost a little bit. And then when COVID hit and we worked from home for a few months, I really got back into it, and I found a good routine. And so for about a year there, I'd been in a good routine, and I've always had something going physically, or fitness wise. And so when he invited me out, my Saturday mornings were usually just a jog through the neighborhood, a few miles here or there or whatever. And I'm like, yeah, I can give that part of my routine up. And so I came out, and I remember T Swift midway through the stations going, is this tough for you? Because and I just said, oh yeah, thinking in my head, no, this is actually kind of a breeze at the station part. And he goes, oh good, because this is really killing me. And but by the end, I was also dead. And and when I left there, I remember thinking, this is pretty cool. I was joining honestly for the fellowship in the middle of COVID because I needed that. And I said, I'll stick with this on Saturday mornings, but I'm not going to let it mess with my fitness routine because I've got a good routine going. And it took me a while to get off just the weekends and realize, hey, this is actually a pretty good workout. I think I could probably let go of what I've got going at home and come here a little more often.
Nice. Well, and then just another piece. I mean, you had two other guys that were coming out for the first time, right? So
Yep.
that's a little bit unique as well. I mean, usually it's one guy that EHs you, whether it's Sasquatch, whoever it is. Tell us about that. I mean, how was it having two other guys that were newbies being there to kind of be in the stuck with you?
Yeah, that was we definitely got done and talked about how much it was, how terrible it was, and okay, we're coming back next Saturday, and we really pulled each other back out through those first few weeks or a month. Again, I didn't, I hear a lot of these stories on this podcast where people were back the next day, and again, that wasn't me right away. I was a Saturday only guy, and then when I found Rabbit Hole, I was a Saturday Sunday only guy because I wasn't going to mess with my weekday routine there for a while until I realized, hey, that's pretty silly. This is a pretty good workout. I think I can let that go. So
That's awesome. I do. So a couple things about the name Hey Hey. So if you're an F3 Nation podcast listener, they did recently do an interview with another Hey Hey, but it's not this Hey Hey. So I listened to that thinking it was going to be you, but it was some other guy, and they were messing around with the name, calling him Hee Hee or something. No, it's Hei. So Hey Hey.
yep.
Yeah, I'm curious too. You kind of went into a little bit there about the Disney movies and just your kids, but sort of give us the lay of the land, sort of family structure. How many kids you have, and maybe
Yeah.
what was life like before F3 for you?
Yeah. So I've been married 10 years this year. This last July, we celebrated our 10-year anniversary. We have three kids, an 8-year-old boy, and then boy-girl twins that are 6. All of them have been out to a beatdown and really enjoyed it. But got a typical life at home. We have a really good relationship with my wife, really good relationship with my kids. But yeah, F3 has definitely helped me improve in some of those areas too. So I really grateful for that.
Well, we're not too scientific on this podcast here, but I mean, there have been some studies that show like, hey, there's direct correlation between the health and fitness of the parents and then children later in life. And, it's great that you've taken them out from beat downs. Let's kind of get outside the realm of a beat down or the physical fitness aspect of it. What have you seen them take away that's not that piece? Is it, hey, my dad is doing this, he's committed to it, and that's helping me there? Or I see my dad has friends and there's opportunity for me to continue to have that throughout my life? Or what do you think they kind of get from it?
Yeah, that's a good question. And hopefully a lot. I know when I've brought them out to the beat downs, I've actually led a couple of the 2.0s at Oracle, with T Swift, with Mufasa, with others. And I talk about, in those COTs, we've talked about the importance of what we're doing and why we're out there, that we're there to become better men, better fathers, better husbands, what that looks like. We're working to make ourselves better, right? And so when I've come home, I've had the chance to talk to them about that too, and why working out is important, but why having that group of guys is important for me. And when we pray, I let them know I prayed about them that day at the beatdown, so they know if they have something going on or if I have something going on. I let them know, hey, I prayed about this morning, just so you know. I've also had the opportunity to stick the Nugent flag in my yard a couple of times and use that opportunity to kind of discuss his legacy with them and what that means, and discuss what a legacy is. And so that's been meaningful as well.
Man, I love that. That's really cool too, just to hear how it translates outside of the morning workouts. So back to kind of this fitness piece. So you're a Saturday guy, Saturday, Sunday guy. Walk us through sort of how did you engage with those weekly beat downs? Did you start with a Murph, or is the Murph been something you've enjoyed, or what's been your journey there? How did you choose where to go?
Yeah. So I was a little skeptical when I heard people were doing Murphs every Monday. I did CrossFit before. My wife and I both did. And so we were familiar with the Murph. And I'm like, there's no way they're doing, Murphs, right? And so that was one of the first ones I tried outside of the Saturday and Sunday. And I'm like, okay, I get it. It was a good workout. And again, that's kind of one of those things that led me to realize, hey, this is going to be as good a workout as I'm getting at home. And so, so the first couple months, it was Saturdays and Sundays. I started in July. And then I'm sure it was cheap seats that pulled me out to a couple weekday workouts. And then did that for a while. And then when he got me into the pre-runs, I'll say that kind of is what made the biggest difference. That's both in terms of engaging with fellow packs, second F conversations, that sort of stuff, but also just, if you go run and if you go to a beat down, you get a 3-mile run in beforehand, there's not, between that and 45 minutes of workout, you're going to get a pretty good workout in. And so, I definitely, my concerns about falling behind on my workout routine and losing any sort of fitness level were ill-founded. Last summer when the halfway house started up, I thought I'll just go see if I could run a half without any training at all. And I'd run a half right before I joined F3, but I'd done all the training for it. And it was in the middle of the Murph challenge. So I hadn't been pre-running as much. My time wasn't quite as good, but I finished it pretty strong and felt pretty good about it. And then once in a while I get back on the treadmill to kind of do some of those workouts I was doing beforehand and see if I still have the same pace, same time. And I have, certainly haven't lost a step.
That's awesome. It's cool just to hear, like, we have so many options, right, on sort of both sides of this fitness, pendulum. So to go from CrossFit and then be able to engage on all these different levels it's just cool to know, right? That's sort of open to all men from a fitness aspect. What you mentioned just a little bit on the, like, you were skeptical. Was it just going from like CrossFit, really more weights based workouts, to like body weight stuff, or where did that skepticism come from? Just because we have had some guys not come back for the workouts not being hard enough. At least I've heard. Maybe that's just Brazilian, but
no, I just found I'd fallen into a really good routine. And again, so I've always had something going on fitness wise. I played sports in high school. In college, it was a lot of intramurals and weights. Right after college, I got into boxing for a couple of years. Then I went back to grad school, and so got into running in some half marathons, that sort of stuff. And then it was CrossFit. And then when we had kids, especially when we had the twins, it was, I finally had fallen into a really good routine at home, and I was setting some marks on the treadmill. And again, I know the treadmill's not the same, but for me, I didn't know any better at the time, that were pretty high marks for me, pretty good numbers. And it was like, okay, I've hit a peak here that I'm really, really enjoying. And I just didn't want to mess with that. And again, it didn't take me too long. 2 months is only 4 Saturdays, right? So, 8 Saturdays. So it was only a couple, not too far in where I'm like, okay, this is serious, and I can do this.
So you're talking about the first step here, and it sounds like you have a real passion for fitness, which is great, and it continues. I'm curious, at what point did the other stuff start kicking in? When did it become more than just the fitness piece and the second F kicks in and all those things?
Yeah, so I'd gone to a few coffees early on, and those were very important. But without a doubt, like so many have said on here before, the pre-runs is what really turned the corner for it. You start having conversations with first guys I knew, and then guys I didn't know, and just the ability to have those deep, meaningful conversations with someone. And I'll say guys I knew, I didn't know their first names, right? I'd worked out with them a few times here and there, and so the ability to have those kind of conversations with individuals, just it's refreshing, because society doesn't really, in my mind, value that or see that as a strength of sharing your vulnerabilities with others. It can be seen as a weakness, right? We need to be strong. We need to present a strong front, and the willingness for others to express vulnerabilities, ask questions, not pretend to have all the answers. Like that's, men need that, and I needed that. So that made the biggest difference.
Yeah, I remember several just great conversations with you, just kind of talking through, how do we be better husbands and what are some of the books we're reading or, other podcasts we're listening to. And you definitely helped me in that area. I am curious because I've also seen you're one of the, kind of like me, you've purchased the Q Source book, and I've
Mhm.
seen you engage in those conversations. What type of impact do you think that has had on the sort of second F piece?
Yeah, absolutely. I've loved the Q source. Last summer I participated a lot at Paradise and then Whetstones on my regular routine, and so really get into it there. And again, to have those kind of conversations with people on from all walks of life and all different faith backgrounds and different places on their faith journey has been extremely valuable. Um, I could name a dozen names of people who have said things in those that have impacted me. Some things I'll say that have been pretty profound, some things that have been very simple but just resonated very well. If you, I'd certainly encourage if you haven't had a chance to plug into the Q source, do so and don't think you have to read the entire book and then go. You absolutely don't. Don't think you have to hit every week to make it meaningful. You certainly don't. But it's a place to plug in and kind of take a little more away from what F3 has to offer.
Well,
What
and
would
to your
you?
point, I mean,
Okay.
I led a Q source and I'd never even been to a Q source before. Someone gave
Oh,
me the reading the night before, and then it's just, hey, it's pretty Socratic. You're going to open it up for questions and just see where the dialogue goes. So it is, it's a great place to be to hear different perspectives, but it's not as intimidating as it may seem, right? I mean, you can participate at whatever level your participation is, whether that's observation or whether that's you've got a point of view that you want to share with somebody. So definitely agree there. You know, Curious, we're talking about Q source. There's also references to shield lock, right, and free delete, as well as just a general concept that is, pushed in F3. Curious your thoughts on that, your successes or your, I guess, your opinion on the shield lock and your experiences there.
Yeah. So I've got a shield lock that I say joke that we've been a shield lock before we knew what shield locks were. We went to preschool together, played t-ball together. Really grew up together. Two of my best friends in T-Swift and Greenhouse, and so we were having a lot of these conversations before we joined F3. But I will say, it still had an impact. In a lot of those conversations, I kind of had fallen into the societal pressure of again, knowing all the answers, presenting a strong front, not expressing vulnerabilities, and this has helped me open up even with that group. And we went on a trip last year and to Zion National Park and hiked that together for a couple of days. And I took the 8 block down and went through the 8 block with them and kind of laid out some of my goals for the year. And I try to follow up with them every other month or so on just how I'm doing and what I still need to work on. And I've failed some months and others I've done well. But that's a good experience too. That's something I'd encourage you if you've got a shield lock to dive into. Uh, and again, you hit up the nail on the head with the Q source. I think sometimes, especially for newer packs or individuals who haven't fully engaged, it can be a little intimidating, right? What is this Q source? And I mean, just go experience it. What is this 8 block? What's a shield lock? It doesn't. You can dip your toe and try to figure it out. And usually, and that's kind of how my experience has been, and it turns out pretty well. Not something to be intimidated by.
Well, and I want to circle back just a little bit. I mean, having two of your best friends in the group here, or two or three that are now part of your shield lock. I'm curious on how, if at all, the dynamic has changed there. Have you guys gotten more intentional with each other? I'm just curious about that piece.
Yeah. So we've always been pretty open to challenging each other. And so I don't, that's always been there. But, me personally, at least, I've become more comfortable being vulnerable with the others. Asking questions before where, they, especially, T-Swift's always been pretty good at that. And seeking advice, seeking out help. And again, I'm kind of someone who's likes to present a strong front. Don't like to pretend, don't like to act like I don't know what's going on or I'm uncomfortable with something. And F3 and going through this whole process has allowed me to open up on that front a little bit.
Yeah, I love that. And I remember one conversation you and I were having about a book study you guys were doing that I thought was really cool on the meaning of marriage, right? So you've got Q Source and the Concentrica, and then guys in a shield lock really diving into what is it like to be a good husband, or what is this whole marriage thing? Tell us about that book study and how that went.
Yeah, so we share a lot of resources, whether it's podcasts, or books or whatever it might be, and we're working on kicking off I call it a Bible study, but technically it's not. We're not starting with the Bible. It's starting with a packet and a resource on marriage with our M's. We've had some false starts there, working on getting that going full steam and trying to get the M's involved, but that was something when summer came and with the kids' schedules, we put on pause. But sharing those resources and then having the conversations about what that means, is again, to me, what a shield lock is about. And certainly hope if they listen to this, that we take another start at the marital side of it with pulling the M's in as well.
Yeah, the cool thing to me, so when I first joined F3, one of the first book studies I did with, Tonight Show put together this book study, and it was like Wait Time and Selleck and, a couple other guys that was on that book, which was, at the time for me, restoring my marriage was my main priority. So I would love it if we could, that would be a book study across the region would be great to do, but yeah, excited to hear how that goes with you guys. I am curious, you think about, it's hard, right? You've got these really tight knit relationships, but within the group, right, we're also trying to welcome in new guys. And what have you found helpful to kind of encourage a new guy to be vulnerable, like you've learned? Is that such a helpful thing?
Yeah, good question, and I think that's one of the things that has made F3 so meaningful to so many, is how open we are to new guys and how welcoming we are. I kind of, when I came in, expected some clicks but that first day, people come talk to you like you'd been there for months, right? And so, one, yes, making sure that the F and G's, quote unquote, cared for that first day, that first beat down, following up with them, via text. I know there's a lot of people doing good jobs making sure we have those numbers available to some leadership people, and that we can reach out to them. But then the best way to me, in my mind, to encourage them to also be vulnerable is just to do so yourself. To demonstrate it, and that really, that's what encouraged me, right? I'm one of the first COTs I remember was Folsom at the Oracle, or back at Boys Town, and it was right after Nugent's death, and I heard about it in the news. I didn't even realize he was in F3. And he talked about that, and with a lot of passion, with a lot of anger and a lot of pain. And again, it was one of those like, oh man, that was deep, that was meaningful, and kind of said that's what these are like, I guess, and so it gave me permission to talk about more too.
I love it, man. Folsom, I think his COTs are just, he brings it home. I think he was episode 7 on the Gloom, but man, he's talk about a big strong guy with a big heart. I love hearing from him. I think the other piece, I guess I would just ask you, as you think about just all of this, right? Your story and sort of maybe the Sky Q and the third F piece, how that all kind of pulls it together. What's been your journey from a third F perspective?
Yeah. So I was born and raised Christian in a church, went throughout my childhood, my young adulthood, my teenage years, whatever, went less frequently, but still, less religiously, but still relatively frequently in college and after college. I've always had strong faith. And so my faith, my beliefs don't waver. I'll say I do, like anyone on a journey like this, there are some highs and lows, right? And so I heard a sermon the other day that talked about, Christianity isn't intended to be repeating the same errors over and over and just like, oh well, I'm forgiven, right? Asking forgiveness. And certainly that's something I've struggled with, right? Is just kind of, running into the same wall more than once, and then, failing to learn from it. And so that's a daily challenge. I do have peaks and valleys, and I'm still learning. Here 10 years into marriage, 8 years as a dad, still learning what it means to be a leader, to lead my family in faith. And that's an ongoing journey that I'm figuring out.
What's that wall for you? Do you mind sharing? You feel comfortable sharing what is that wall that you feel like you run into?
Gosh. But yeah, I mean, I bounce between quite a few of them, to be honest with you. But a big one is just self-centeredness. My word for the year is others. And so often when I hear anything, whether it's a plan for the night, a plan for the weekend, my immediate reaction is, well, how does that affect me, and what do I want to, and what I want to do, right? But yeah, that's something, again, went through the 8 block, and my word for the years is others, and trying to live third. And I love that mantra from F3, and trying to feel what that means, right? And live that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that's just a singular issue to you, right? And that's kind of the beauty of F3 is, I deal with it. I know Plague deals with it. We talk about it often. Self-centeredness is something, I think man is inherently selfish.
Right.
And so whether you got a kid or a wife or whatever that is, I mean, there's a constant struggle and give and take of, am I prioritizing their needs? Am I making sure I'm like staying true to my Concentrica? And that's a tough battle. I mean, but I think what is encouraging is that you're not the only guy that's dealing with it here, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's 1,000 guys in Omaha and F3 here that are dealing with the same thing. So, and I guess my follow-up to that would be, what does F3 provide, or what do you take away from F3 that kind of helps you with those struggles, or helps kind of further your journey?
Yeah. I mean, a sounding board, right? The opportunity to talk to others, and to, when you have an issue or a problem you're dealing with, it gains a lot of strength when you hold it into yourself, right? If I can't remember who it was, maybe Tim Ferriss, who talked about, when you hold your demons in, they go into the cellar and lift weights, right? And so just letting those go, giving them less power by speaking them out loud is helpful. But also just to know you're not alone, right? To know that it's like, there's nothing about me that's messed up with that I'm not, yes, we're all broken individuals, and there's others with this plight going through this same challenge. And again, I remember one of my other first workouts, who Sparty was talking about how he gave up alcohol. And it's like, that'd be another one that you talk about what walls I run into. I'm 38, and there's times I still go out like I'm 28, right? And it's like, okay, you can't be doing that as much anymore. And so seeing people go through that and make that adjustment, that's just a natural adjustment of life. When you start having, when you move into older age and you start having kids that look up to you and that are watching your every move, you gotta let some of those old habits go. And so seeing that path and seeing that demonstrated by others is helpful.
Well, and I don't think, the thing with kids is they don't care how hungover you are the next day, right? That's a good deterrent for me, for sure.
Yep.
Well, Plague, you got anything on the third F still?
Yeah, I just think it's so cool. We're relational beings, right? So like God clearly works through these relationships, and there's been so many mornings where I'm in this self-centered mindset, and then you get next to another guy and you ask him how his week's going, and you hear something that just slaps you in the face with why
Right.
you should be grateful, and like you hear prayer requests come up, or like it's just all these different ways of just being in community with other men, that I feel like we're being sharpened. It's just cool to hear. So,
well, and
sharing that,
and just to add on to that, it's that, but also I'm really appreciative of the moments where I'm next to the guy and I'm bitching about my problems, and they're like, that's nothing. Or, hey, your wife is feeling this way for this reason. Have you given it any this thought? And I'm like, probably not. I've been thinking about myself too much to really think about how she's feeling. So appreciative of those as well.
Right. Something you said there on the circle of trust and hearing the prayers. Absolutely. It's like, there's two things there. One, it reminds me sometimes my problems are a lot smaller than I think they are. But two, it also reminds me that there's not a problem too small to bring up and pray about and to talk to people about. I might get reset with my, expectations or where I'm at, my perspective, I guess, might get reset. But it's like, it is something I'm dealing with and going through, no matter how little it is, right? And so, and Pony, you talked about people challenging it back. And I love that. Sometimes we just want to vent, right? We just want a sounding board to vent off of. But sometimes when you get a little pushback versus just the that helps the other person too. And so don't, when you're running with someone, don't be afraid to be a listener, listen to what they're saying, but also kind of challenge a little bit as well.
I love that. I think it's really cool. Just we get to be next to all these guys with different perspectives and different journeys themselves. So I appreciate you sharing that, and just your willingness to be vulnerable right there, right, and share two of the walls, right, that you're bouncing between. So I love that. I do want to get your thoughts on leadership, because I feel like you're in a position of leadership at work, right? I feel like we've talked about that at Q Source, and our goal, right, we're trying to reinvigorate male community leadership. But talk us through maybe your VQ, being a site Q, other things that F3 has maybe done to help advance your leadership.
Yeah, it's so I've had a leadership position at work for a while. It's something I've gotten comfortable with, and it's something I'm passionate about. I work in engineering construction in the natural gas industry. I have zero passion for natural gas, zero passion for energy, but I do have a passion to have an impact on others, and a lot leadership allows you to do that. And one, F3 provides more opportunity for that, right, to lead, but also to be led and see what that looks like. So my VQ was at the Oracle. It was on or around Halloween, I believe, and we went to Heartbreak Hill, and we ran it pretty much the whole time with some calisthenics in between. And I don't remember who it was, but someone fell off and just laid down for a while. And I remember, I had the QU4 the Q high going, and I'd gone out with my wife beforehand and ran through the workout with her just to, make sure it was doable, make sure try it out. I think my first 4 or 5 Qs I did on my own, or with my wife, or with somebody, just to make sure it made sense. That's how I prepared. And I remember, I think Cheap Seat said, well, it's a good cue when someone has to fall out and can't finish it. And so that was a good experience. I felt completely supported by the leaders that were there and had been there before. And they had the opportunity. Go ahead.
That was Pony, wasn't it? The guy keeled over.
May have been.
No, I'm confident it wasn't Pony. But and then when Cheap Seats approached me about being a site queue, it hadn't even crossed my mind. It was a couple springs ago, I guess, and it was like that. It seriously wasn't on my radar. I wasn't even sure how it worked. I'd been to some flag passes, so I was kind of aware, but I think me, him, and Vandalay were the only one doing consistent trifectas and double posting, and so maybe by default he said this guy might work out. And so I sat down with him and he kind of talked through what it meant, and I was like, yeah, no problem. But I set up my flag pass, because the first thing I did when I took the flags was start looking like, who am I going to pass these things to, right? Who am I going to hand them off to? And when you're looking for leaders in F3 around a group of guys like we have, it really shines. I mean, you see it everywhere, and so we're so blessed. I hear a lot of site queues. Oh man, who am I going to hand this to? Kind of worried about it. It's like, don't worry about it. Something's going to present itself there, because we've got a lot of leaders and a lot of people, really accelerating.
Tell us about the Saturday site. Just because we, at least from my view, the Saturday site queues end up with a little more responsibility than the other sites, just because you're on a Saturday, right? So often it's like, hey, what are we doing for a 2.0 workout? What are we doing for this holiday? Or, and then to have a site with a 6 and a 7 a.m. I mean, talk us through some of those things.
Yeah, I mean, so every site has its burdens, right? It's stuff you have to deal with, and the Saturday, there was times where my wife would be like, hey, let's go to my my parents for the weekend. I'm like, yeah, let's leave Saturday at 10, and it's kind of like, hey, what? And so pretty early on, I decided I wanted to pass the flags to two people having the two workouts, which I thought would help with that, right? If someone else could stay there, and also, I felt a little bit of pressure to make sure I was there for the pre-run and both beatdowns every week. And so, I thought that might alleviate some of the pressure as well. But I know when I was talking to people about their interest in being a site Q at Oracle or elsewhere, one thing that came up often is, well, what about Saturdays? And I said, how does that work for you? And I said, you need to have a conversation with your M and make sure she understands, what you're getting into, what you're committing to. But again, at the end of the day, all that pressure I was putting on myself was me putting it on myself. I had people around me, Cheap Seats, Vandalay, others that were more than willing to carry the flags for me, when I was gone, because I'd certainly missed a few Saturdays as well. So.
Yeah, curious. Maybe we start with lows, and I don't want to qualify it as lows as a site Q, but maybe some hurdles you ran into or obstacles that you had to kind of work through, and then maybe kind of wrap up with the highs of being the site Q there.
Yeah, I don't know that I had. The lowest might have been, there was some frustration with my wife at times as far as, okay, another Saturday, you're going to be gone 3 hours, which I was like, well, one waking hour, right? Let's be real here. And so there was a little frustration there. And in the day we had to just sit down and kind of talk through it. And she was very supportive, when it was time to pass the flag, I, told her what was coming, and she was, I'm sure, excited some, but also, hey, you want to talk about it? How you feeling? She was there for me. The highs are so many. I mean, it's just the F and Gs, the VQs we saw. I've always tried to make a point, if I had an F and G at the Oracle, to follow up and get them to also VQ at the Oracle. Laser Jet stands out. He actually absolutely killed us on his VQ way back when. There was some Merlot splashed, and then after that he got done. I remember Zebra Cakes, who actually brought Laser Jet out, reached out and said, hey, I've actually never queued. And I said, well, let's get you on the schedule, and so, giving the people the chance to lead and then seeing him lead, Speed Bump being another one. He came out one day, and I kind of worked him early on to try to get him on the VQ. And yeah, you guys see him out there. He's absolutely killing it. So.
Yeah, Speed Bump's a Valley guy. I was just talking to him about, hey, we need a site out in Valley, so that's on the west sector roadmap. Valley, Fremont, here we come.
Yep.
I'm curious your thoughts on this, because I guess from my personal posting abilities, Saturday has become a day that's harder for me to post as my kids get older. What trends are you seeing out there with the packs? Do you feel like numbers have been pretty stable? Who are we seeing a lot of F and Gs? What do you feel like, just from your experience at the Oracle there?
Yes. My experience at the Oracle, Saturdays were very strong numbers wise, and F and Gs, especially lately, have been great. And, hopefully the two new site Qs don't let it go. Don't let it go to. I'm joking, but it's I remember when the year before I took over, we always had strong 6 a.m. and we had a smaller group of 7 a.m.ers, and that it was still the theory or the how things were when I was there at 6 and 7. Although I think the 7 group got consistently bigger. There were days when it was 3 or 4. It was consistently 8 to 12 with the 7 a.m. consistently being in the low end 15 and consistently 20 to 25. And so they're good numbers. It's a great, to me, the Saturday is a good place to get F and Gs, because you're not having to wake up at 4:30 or 5 o'clock on a weekday.
Yeah, I think something about that 6 a.m. is kind of the sweet spot. You get an extra 30 minutes of rest, whatever it is. And then to your point, same with my wife. I mean, it's only one hour of awake if you count the coffee or the cafeteria afterwards. So it's a good spot for guys. There's not a lot of commitments to. And I think it creates more of an opportunity for guys to stick around for cafeteria, right? They don't have the excuse of, hey, I've got to jump and go shower and get ready for work. Most guys have an hour to burn afterwards. So I agree with you.
Yeah, and the numbers don't lie, right? I mean, I'll tell you, from the survey says, right, Oracle is,
Let the data nerd tell
yeah,
you the numbers.
I mean, the survey says Oracle has had the highest number of F&Gs, of any site in this past year, right? So I mean, I think the fact that we're, because there's always been this kind of question of like, do we still need to, do you? And I think yes, I mean, we're seeing guys are showing up to both the 6 and the 7, and it's
Mhm.
that option for your buddy that says 5:30 is too early, and even 6 a.m. on a Saturday may be too early, right? Well, hey, we got a 7. So I do think it's great just to have those options. Um, would love to hear too, just as you think about, you mentioned, you handed it off to 2 guys so they can share the responsibility, but tell us about the 2 guys that you selected, and maybe talk us through what you saw in them that would make them good leaders.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, I said this at the flag pass, so I'm not going to hurt their feelings at all, but they weren't my first choices, right? I thought pretty early on I'd be passing on to T Swift and Greenhouse. And we talked about it when we went out and did the 8 block, and I think I had them all in. And then, when they had the chance to open a site, I was like, wait a minute, fellas, we had an agreement here. But, at the end of the day, it's like that's a much better use of their abilities for an awesome opportunity for F3 Omaha, right? And again, that's when I was at first I was like, oh crap, I know I'm gonna need to find 2 new, not just 1 guy, but 2 new guys. And that's when I kind of opened my eyes up and looked around even more. And it's like, I don't know what I'm worried about. There's so many guys accelerating. And so Home Alone I've known for a while. So he's T Swift's brother-in-law, and we've been on some trips together. I was familiar with him. I was really excited when he came out, and then to watch him just dive in and embrace it was awesome. And again, not all 3 Fs really. And then same with Chowda. I didn't know Chowda beforehand, and candidly, he wasn't a regular at the Oracle, I'd seen him accelerating. I've seen so much out of him in the second F at different events, but also he was someone I'd see after winning a COT, and someone praised for something that I was like, oh man, that was that's a deep one. I'd see him after the COT off to the side praying with an individual one-on-one, and that stuck out to me about Chada. And so very happy to find 2 very deserving guys that I know are going to do a great job of carrying on the legacy there.
Yeah, it's so funny, right? Because when I heard it was those 2 guys, I'm like, well, shoot, there goes our, any of the guys that we're going to post in the Northwest on a potential Saturday, because they've got a shield lock that's like 12 guys, I think, at that point. No, I'm kidding. It's so cool because there's like, it's just, we identify the right leaders for each site, and we, everything else sort of pivots, and, so I'm excited. And I think it's cool that you capture that about Chowda. I don't know how many other guys recognize that, but I would encourage you to watch, right? That's something that is on my list of want to be more in tune to what those prayers are and how do we support those people, especially, you bring up this heavy prayer request in a big group, then we pray, and then everybody goes to coffee, and it's sort of like, well, wait a minute, let's
Yeah.
kind of zero in on that. Also curious, as you think about just your time as a site Q or even just in F3, what sort of advice or things would you maybe encourage guys to be doing more of? Just maybe it's new guys, or as we're leading workouts, what would you share from your learnings?
Yeah. Really just dive in. I mean, to wherever you're comfortable. F3 is one of those things, like a lot of things in life, it'll meet you where you're at. And so, if you're ready to meet it at arm's length and kind of just feel your way out a little bit, it's good for that. If you're ready to dive, head first in the deep end and just go in, it'll meet you there. And but I encourage you to continue to challenge yourself in all 3 Fs, and let F3 be a resource for you again in all 3, because obviously we're meeting there to work out. There's always challenges or the next step available in the first step to challenge yourself. If you're feeling pretty good about your fitness at the beat downs, join the pre-runs. If you kind of got both of those, come try a trifecta. There's iron packs, there's apex, there's a number of ways to challenge yourself there on the first step. Second F, okay, I'm hanging around afterwards, the beat down, talking to a few guys. Maybe I'm ready to try some coffee, right? There's plenty of second F events and kind of making friends and plugging in that way. Third F, find those people who are on the same journey as you, maybe again, obviously different places on the journey, and plug yourself into the Q source or whatever that might be, and lean on some of those relationships as far as, hey, that person's kind of, we're on similar journeys, or I want to be on a similar journey as him. And I want to be where he's at, and I'm not, and reach out and kind of, hey, how are you getting there? What are you doing? So,
You know what? I really appreciate this dismissal of complacency, right? This thought of, hey, continue to test yourself, and you're not perfect, right? Continue to strive for the best that you can be, and continue to challenge yourselves where, yeah, you're great at the first step right now. Okay, it's time to dive into the other areas, because it's not F1, right?
yeah, yep.
Yeah. Well, anything else that we haven't covered that you feel like you'd like to share?
Yeah, I mean, again, I think I've listened to every episode now. I certainly didn't start when you guys started, but made my way up. I listened to quite a few of them on that first halfway house, actually. But one thing that you consistently hear, you hear people who have had impacts on others, right? And I told Cheap Seats and Vandalay, I think they're one of the most frequently called out names on this, and it just really speaks volumes to the kind of impact that you can have on other grown men. If you're willing to just be there, show up, talk to people, embrace people, engage people. You never know what kind of impact it can have. And so I'm a pretty social guy. I could probably sit down and have a conversation with the wall if I needed to. And so it kind of comes naturally to me to have those conversations. But I'll say going that next layer, going a little deeper, is not something that's innately natural to me. So challenging myself there, because, said before, iron sharpens iron. Facade doesn't sharpen facade, right? So if we come to F3 and approach it like we do everything else in life, where it's very common and to wear masks, to put on a facade, we're not going to get much out of it. But if you can get below those layers of varnish and dig in deep, it can have a pretty big impact.
Yeah, man, I love it. And I just would encourage guys, I think, reflect what's that next layer that you need to dive into, right? To just engage a little bit more. And hey, man, just appreciate your story, and just your willingness to acknowledge, right? I think the vulnerability piece is something a lot of guys struggle with. Same with the self-centeredness. That's a daily, hourly, sometimes every 5 minutes thing for me. So I love just acknowledging that. So appreciate you, brother. This has been great.
Yeah. Thanks for the time, man.
We'll do a little
Name-a-rama
here. Close us out.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
All right. I'll start us off here. Brandon Fleary, 37, The Plague.
The Plague. John Whitworth, 31, Pony Express.
Hey.
Pony Express. Hey. And I'm Bo Bomber, 38. Hey, hey.
Hey, hey.
Hey, hey.
Right? It's the hey, hey, the chicken, right?
Yep, the chicken noise.
Yeah. The hardest name-a-ramas are if you're next to Home Alone, right? So if it's you, Home Alone, and then me, and then it's kind of like they all sound the same at that.
Yeah.
It's good. Hey, appreciate it, brother.
Well,
have a
thanks,
good rest
guys.
of your day.
Appreciate y'all.
All right. Thanks, fellas.
See ya.